Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Last time, we tackled the first room in Alexander. Today, we tackle the second, the Cuff of the Father. Reminder that this is Alexander Normal, not Savage. Savage is going to add a whole slew of new troubles for you, but this at the very least shouldn't be too much of a headache. In fact, Room 2 is perhaps the easiest of all the rooms that I've found, in my opinion at least, from a DPS's perspective. Reminder that the drops that you get from Alexander are not actual gear themselves, but instead items that you can then exchange for pieces of item level 190 gear, which you can see me showing off here. From Alexander 2, you get there are 2 chests that open up, giving you a potential 4 items total, but those 4 items will be either the lens, the pedal, or a bolt. The lens, pedal, and bolt. The lens can be turned in to get you the piece of headgear, of which you will need 2 tokens. The pedal can be changed in for feet, which you will need 2 tokens. And the bolt can be turned in for an accessory, of which you only need 1 bolt per accessory. So with that said, let's zip ahead to the fight itself. And there we are, ready to go. Honestly, Alexander 2, I will do just when I feel like either doing Alexander, because Alexander is kind of fun, or if I just need to knock one out real quick. I feel like 2 goes by faster than most of the other ones, but maybe it doesn't. I haven't actually timed them. I guess we'll be able to judge by the length of the videos. Now, Alexander 2 is effectively Trash Pulls the dungeon. There's very little in the way of a proper boss in Alexander 2. You're going to be running through 3 trash pulls on your way to him, or to the boss, quote-unquote, and then the boss itself is going to be yet more trash. Now, the enemies in the first pull here, you see, are 2 Gordian footmen and a boom-type Magitech Gobwalker. The Gordian footmen don't do anything too fancy, they run up and try to smack you. The Magitech Gobwalker, on the other hand, should be your first priority to down, as it will actually put a stacking debuff on the tank. Alexander 2 has a similar thing that I find applies to most situations, which is the taller the enemy, the higher the priority. However, that's not always the case in Alexander 2, just taking a gander at the water there very quickly, as we make our way into and over that hallway into the next group of adds, of which there are now some Gordian footmen and some Gordian snipers. These should all be just as easy to take out. The Gordian footmen do, as I said before, which is run up and smack you. The Gordian snipers will stand back and shoot you. Fair warning, though, especially if you're just starting to do Alexander, like you just hit that item level requirement, which, if memory serves, is 170, these things will hit hard, so do be wary. Them defeated. You can see the passage further ahead is still flooded, so down we go again. In general, I find when I jump down, as long as I don't try to land on the actual rotating door to open up, I tend not to take much damage, but I see other people land with no HP left. But with that said, we're moving on here, and it's nothing we haven't seen already. 2 Gordian footmen and 2 Gobwalkers. As before, the Gobwalkers will still put the stacking debuff on the tank, so take them down first. If memory serves, the debuff that the Gobwalkers put on you is actually a vulnerability up debuff, so nasty stuff. Make sure to take them out. And now we can move ahead, and after a brief cutscene, we come to Hangar 12, the official arena of the fight. Now, in this fight, it's effectively going to be a trash pull fight. There's going to be a total of 8 waves, not including the 2 enemies you see over there, that appear time and time again to continue to torment you. At first, you only see 2 Gordian soldiers. They do the same thing that you've always seen enemies do. Typically, the tanks will assign sides, an A side and a B side, a north side and a south side, of which the tanks then will grab the adds that spawn in that area and haul them off to either side, generally splitting everything into 2 groups. This is, of course, because with the various enemies adding debuffs and just dealing high damage, it's going to be a lot for one tank to handle. However, if you have someone who's well geared enough, you potentially could grab everybody, bring them together, and then AoE everything down. In the Duty Finder, I wouldn't trust that so much. Now, just behind the 2 Gordian soldiers, you'll see 2 Gobwalkers that are unmanned. Now, I volunteered to be responsible for them so I can show you the mechanics behind those and still speak on everything else that's going on. But suffice to say, it's not actually that complicated, or at least not in normal. I can very easily imagine how in Alexander Savage, the use of those things is going to be quite horrific. Now, with them down, the first wave shows up, which is 2 Gordian soldiers and a Gordian sniper. Really not too bad. Across the arena, however, is a Gordian Hardhelm, which the Hardhelm, I believe, puts another stacking debuff on the tank. So the Hardhelm should always be your first priority, when not presented with various others. I personally would actually take out the Gobwalker before them. Now the next wave shows up, and we're once again greeted to 2 Gordian snipers, as well as a hard mind and a jagged doll. The jagged doll here should be your #1 priority to kill, and should always be, as it, though it doesn't add a stacking debuff to anyone, hurts. The hard mind, I believe, adds a healing debuff to whoever happens to be tanking him at the moment, and then simply the soldiers or snipers remaining. It doesn't really matter which. Now with them dead, you should be able to see off there in the distance, a tank rolls up, and that means it's my time to go run and get in the Gobwalker. There's not much need for me to get in it up until now, which is why I was simply DPSing. Now, this wave of enemies is 4 soldiers and 1 Magitech Gobwalker, so the Gobwalker should be your top priority, and then a bomb drops down. You'll notice of the 5 abilities that I have, 3 of them cost a fee. That is the energy, which you can see the CP in the lower right-hand corner of my little bit. The first of which will add a heavy effect, which is generally all but useless in here. The second one will stun the targets, and for a substantial amount of time. However, hate will reset after that. So you'll want to make sure if you do stun them that the enemies will die before that actually runs up. In normal mode, it's honestly useless. The next wave has come down, by the way, which is actually simply 2 Gob Widow tanks. As intimidating as these 2 things are, they're really not that big a threat. They don't have much in the way of general offense, and should honestly be your lowest priority to kill. Now the third attack over on my little bar there, you'll see is actually very low cost and adds a vulnerability up debuff to whoever I hit with it. That one, despite being the lowest cost, is also the most useful, I find, and so you'll see me spamming the crap out of that. The fourth one across is Sticky Loom, which is effectively a grapple. These bombs will drop down into the arena, and it's my job to grapple them and pull them away from everyone else so the explosion doesn't hit them. The next wave is down, by the way, which is 2 small soldiers, as well as 2 hard helms and 1 jagged doll. So your top priority should be the jagged doll, followed by the hard mine hard helm, and then finally the regular soldiers. Now the 5th ability I have over, you'll notice I am slowly using my CP, my energy, is actually a recharge. However, you don't get the option to recharge very often at all. In fact, it can only be done when you see the Gobwalkers show up, since they're similar to you. If you manage to get them down to 15% of their health, they'll start to break down a little bit, and you can actually run up, stand near them, and use recharge to draw energy from them. In normal mode, this isn't important at all, because you shouldn't be using either of the 2 costly skills, or at least it's not very important to use them. The next wave is down, by the way, which I believe I've actually long since lost track of which wave we're on. There's a Gobwalker out, however, as well as a couple soldiers, so there's that. Now, since you generally won't be using the 2 more costly skills, there's not much reason and not much risk to running out of CP, so it shouldn't be that big a concern. You can use them, of course, and hey, I'm sure it would be more efficient to attempt to use the other abilities, but I don't bother. And honestly, if you do run out of energy, you can just get out of this ability, get out of this Gobwalker, and go get in the other one. The next wave is down, by the way, which I believe this one is 4. No, that one actually has the jagged doll. We're nearing the end of this. This one is 2 Gordian soldiers or snipers, 1 Gobwalker, 1 jagged doll, and 1 Gob Widow tank. So of course the jagged doll should be your top priority, followed by the Gobwalker, then the smalls, then go help out with the Gob Widow. Which, let me just tell you, Gob Widow is like the coolest name. Like, I don't know, that's just cool. I just want to fight those things. They're huge and massive, and they're called Gob Widows. Ah, it's cool. Tip with the bombs, by the way, as long as you manage to stay ahead of the ads, because they will spawn on a timer. If you don't kill one wave fast enough, the next wave will drop down right on top of them. As long as you don't fall behind on the waves, there should be few enough enemies in the overall hate list that you can spot the bomb in the hate list on the left side of the screen, just below all of the party members. You can target it through that, and that'll tell you directly where it is, and you can then drag it where you need to drag it. Now that explosion there is actually something you can't really avoid too much. The final wave is down, by the way, which is 2 Jag Dolls, 1 Hard Helm, and a Gob Widow tank. 2 Jag Dolls is going to be rough. However, at this point, you also shouldn't be getting any more bombs down, so I'm laying into them with that vulnerability up debuff. The explosions you saw not long ago, though, are something you can't really do too much about. That's actually an ability of the Gob Widow. If you bring the small soldiers or snipers near him, the Gob Widow can actually use an ability on them that gives them a debuff that makes it so when they die, they explode. So as long as you keep the various smalls away from the Gob Widow tank, it shouldn't be much of an issue. The Jag Dolls are down, the Hard Helm remains. I'm still trying to keep vulnerability up. The vulnerability up debuff will stack up to 5. So I'm putting, at this point I know we're at the end, so I'm going to drop 5 on the Gob Widow tank, and then I'm just going to hop off and punch him. There's nothing else for me to need that tank for, and after we beat him, the end of the fight comes. That one's fun, and I like running the tank. 2 treasure coffers down, I already told you what drops. You can see the loot there. You're allowed 1 item from Alexander 2 per week. Across all 4 Alexanders, that means you get 4 items total per week. But thus ends Alexander Room 2, the Cuff of the Father. Until next time, everyone.